So my dear students and the young learners, now here we go with the one more short video and connected with your personality development or PEI you can say. Now this particular video we will be discussing about the getting rid of your inferiority complex. I read it again. How you can get rid of or avoid inferiority complex, particularly in your job situation where you have to face a GD or an interview, right? And generally in your professional life also, it is going to a great deal help you in overcoming any sort of inferiority complex that one is likely to have. Okay, now first of all, let us try to understand what is this inferiority complex, right? We may have this tendency of inferiority complex without realizing. So therefore, first of all, you diagnose, you have to know that whether you have a inferiority complex or not, right? So before that, we will first of all discuss what this, in a simple way, what is this inferiority complex is all about, right? So very in a simple way, we can say inferiority complex is something which is a feeling of inadequacy or insecurity that is leading to the behavior of withdrawal, fear, shyness, and etc. etc. It is different from occasionally feeling inferior. See, one may feel occasionally inferior, but that is only in a particular situation, right? And it's also very temporary, mind you. But if you have a chronic low self-esteem, then that is inferiority complex. That's part of your personality, mind you, right? And this inferiority complex actually holds us or you particularly young learners back personally as well as professionally. Okay? Now, so how do you identify whether you have inferiority complex in you or not, right? Here are a few suggestions which experts have given. I am just putting it across to you, right? We can say that these are some of the signs or symptoms of inferiority complex, right? So first one is when you are focusing on negative more than positive, right? Now when we continuously dwell with our failure, right? This indicates we are having some inferiority complex in us, right? So what happens? We get struck with self-defeating pattern, right? We feel as if we are less than others in most of the aspects, both in our personal life, both also in our professional life, in our appearance, in our knowledge, in our intelligence, right? So this is a pessimistic actually outlook, right, which expects always a negative or a bad outcome of whatever we do. Now, and in the same way, what happens is if we have an inferiority complex, if we are focusing on negative, then obviously we are expecting others to do far better than us, right? In a job situation, let's say we are facing an interview or a GD, we are part of GD, then we always expect that others will be doing better than us. I have a chance, less than that of others. This feeling is something which is, negative, and it is due to purely your inferiority complex. This may not be true about you. Next is, there's always a tendency to shut down or withdraw, right? Now, regularly if you shut down out of shame, out of guilt, out of embarrassment, right? This is somewhat, we can say that a sense of self-defeat, right? Okay. Now, people who have inferiority complex, how do they withdraw, right? They turn down the invitations to spend time with others. When others ask you, come on, let's go, then you try to, some way avoid taking some excuses, right? And you take some excuses to remain alone. Why? It may be because of inferiority complex. Then suppose there is a conversation going on with your friends group, right? And if you have a tendency of inferiority complex in you, then what you do, You don't initiate the conversation, neither you participate, the way expected by others, right? You also at times avoid open-ended questions, because open-ended questions, it requires a, explanation, is a detail-oriented answers, right? So that also you avoid because you have a inferiority complex in you. Now, people who have this tendency of inferiority complex, what they do? Young people like you, right? What they often do is they demean others. What do you mean demean others? Just to overcompensate for one's own feeling of insufficiency, what they do? They are very critical, hypercritical about others. They will always try to make others feel inferior. This is called demeaning. They try to find fault in others to feel better about themselves, right? They can do it both actually verbally, by words, by your sentences, right? And also non-verbally. How non-verbally? Take for instance, eye rolling like this, right? This eye rolling, that means you have an inferiority complex, you don't want other ones to feel, superior to you, right? Because you are inferior, right? Turning away, when others are pointing out certain things, they are discussing, you are just not paying attention to. You turn away from them or looking distracted, right? This is a non-verbal way of, communicating, or rather, realizing that you are having some inferiority complex in you. So, demeaning is yet another indication or sign of inferiority complex. Next is avoiding competition. If there is a contest, if there is a competition going on, maybe a healthy competition, maybe a debate competition, maybe a song competition, maybe a, some sort of games going on in which you are good about, normally you are very good, but then you don't like to participate, you don't like to compete. Why it is so? You are avoiding competition because, right, you compare yourself with others and rate yourself as inferior to them, which may not be the reality, right? There is something, deep-seated belief in some people, they are less than others, okay? Now, faced with a challenge, what they do? They don't, contest, they don't give a fight, right? What they do? They give up very easily. This indicates you are having some inferiority complex in you, right? Maybe you believe that you will not be able to succeed. Next, one more thing is, there is a tendency to overanalyze compliments and criticisms. People with inferiority complex, what they do, they take these things very seriously, right? If there is a compliment, they also take it with a pinch of salt. Is it a real one, right? Okay. And if they do some criticism also, let me see, somebody is pointing out some negative, giving you some negative feedbacks also, right? They have a tendency to overanalyze, right? And because it is all because they believe, the core belief of these type of people is that they are not enough. Next is, they try to look for validation and praise from others. If they do something, they are very much suspicious about themselves. Have they done it properly? Have they come up to the expectations? Right? This type of people, what they do, they constantly seek what is called reassurance constantly by asking them several questions to others, right? For instance, how do they look? They'll be asking you, am I looking okay? Okay? Am I standing all right? Is my posture all right? Right? Now, they also ask about their own, attire or dress. Is my dress fitting well? Right? Am I looking good in this particular outfit? Whether they are looking clean, tidy, all these questions they keep on, putting others just to validate, right? And if there is a praise, they don't take it very easily, right? Now, why at all we are discussing inferiority complex here? See, we have been discussing, on different aspects how, particularly we started with group discussion, then we discussed so many, sub themes about interview, PI rounds. So, both these, group discussion as well as personality interview outcome, great deal depends on this complex, whether you have a inferiority complex in you, right? With all your good competency qualities, also you may not perform well if you have this tendency of inferiority feelings within you, hidden somewhere, right? So inferiority complex, how it affects, because it's a chronic feeling of inadequacy in you, so you are unable to perform, to the extent normally you should have in this GD and PI rounds. There is also low self-esteem, always doubting yourself, that's called self-doubt, right? A tendency to withdraw, which I have already stated very briefly. Okay, now let us specifically see how these inferiority complex affects one in a GD, and then let's see, list out a few important points in case of a PI round also. So in a GD or group discussion, this social withdrawal, avoiding, how it affects. So individual with these inferiority complex, they will obviously be reluctant to contribute their ideas very freely, right? What they apprehend, they will be judged by others, maybe they will be ridiculed, right? Next thing happens in a GD is, if you have the inferiority complex, difficulty in accepting criticisms. You get hypersensitive. If somebody points out certain things, if they disagree with you, in GD what happens is, people normally disagree among themselves. Sorry, I beg to differ, your ideas are not acceptable because I have a different point of view, someone might say. So what happens, these people who have inferiority complex immediately get very upset, right? So they don't accept this, right? Then people who are with the inferiority complex, particularly in a GD situation, they will not be assertive. What is assertiveness? Sharing your strong belief, commitment, straightway, right? Without getting aggressive. That they don't do, right? A person might struggle to share his honest opinion or views just because of inferiority complex. Then there is always a fear of making mistakes, right? Now, this overthinking that I might commit an error, others might smile at me, others might mock at me, right? Now, this is actually going to ultimately lead to some missed opportunities which you could have capitalized otherwise. Now, come to this PI round, personality interview, how your inferiority complex is going to, make a difference, right? Now, this will lead to lack of self-confidence and you are not going to maintain eye contact. If you have an inferiority complex, you don't meet an eye to eye. So in a PI round, normally it is expected that you should be looking at the eyes of the interviewers, panelist, right? This we have already discussed earlier in the other videos. So you avoid eye contact and the interviewers might in the process misinterpret that you may be not capable of. You have self-doubt in you, so they may not choose you. Now, also in an interview, suppose you are getting a compliment. Interviewers are giving you some positive remarks, compliments. You are unable to accept that because of this self-doubt, that is inferiority complex. When praised for an accomplishment, an individual with this inferiority complex, right, may attribute it to just luck, or it's not a genuine appreciation. That thing, comes to your mind. Self-doubt and negative self-talk. That is also the outcome of what happens if you are in inferiority complex in you, right? And in PI, you should never have this negative self-talk. Maybe I do not know this answer. It may be you are not knowing the answer. But why do you, cross the river before you reach the shore, right? Fear of failure always haunts you and you are unable to, participate very actively in the QA session that an interview normally goes through, right? Candidates will be reluctant to express their stand. Suppose an opportunity comes, right? Some offer comes from the interviewer, right? So the self-doubt is going to pull you back, right? Suppose interviewers tell you, Mr. X, you are going to be posted to X states, not your own, place which you belong to. Are you going to accept it? Sometimes it comes. But because you have a self-doubt, inferiority complex, so you are, unable to give a commitment. So after, listing out these, signs or symptoms of negativity or inferiority complex, right, and how it affects your, performance in a GD and PI, let's see how do we overcome this then. If the, problem is diagnosed, then we can find out some solutions. So experts have also advised, some of them I will be listing out here, please be attentive and listen to, right. First is stop comparing yourself with others. You are unique, mind you. We all are unique in our own ways, right? So don't always compare yourself with others. When you compare yourself with others, you experience some sort of jealousness or envy, and the more you are envious, right, worse you feel about yourself. That means you downgrade your own ratings. Remember your own strength and success instead, what you have achieved. Tell yourself, my journey is unique. I'll compare myself only with who I was yesterday. What you are doing? You are trying to compare yourself with your past achievements and tell yourself that I'm going to do better. Second thing what you can do is surround yourself with positive people, right? No, if you surround yourself with negative people who always are, sharing certain things, failures, right? And telling you this, that, nothing is going to happen, right? We have failed, you are also going to fail. This type of people are around. So try to avoid this type of people who have a negative, attitude. People you spend time with can influence your thought and attitude about yourself. So better to seek out others who are positive, and this can help you to build, your self-confidence and overcome your inferiority complex. Next is take care of your body. Healthy mind can come only in the healthy body. So doing something about your mind, your body and your spirit, what is suggested? So what you do? Take healthy diet, right? Do physical exercises. Also meditate. Meditation, brings in us some sort of calmness, right? Then sleep. Quality of sleep is very essential, mind you. If you don't get sound sleep, right, your mind and body will not be able to cope with you in different situations, and you will always be, feeling some sort of inferiority within you, that you are incapable of this, doing that or this. So take care of your body. Next is be kind to yourself. What do you mean by be kind to yourself? Treat yourself with kindness when you make a mistake, fail to achieve something, or you experience some sort of setbacks, right? When you make a mistake, you can choose to forgive yourself instead of being very hypercritical, right? Then one more very important suggestions that comes from, psychologists, they say that practice always a positive self-talk, right? What is a positive self-talk, right? That means avoid negative self-talk, because negative self-talk can limit your abilities and lessen your self-confidence. That will, leading to inferiority complex, right? There are ways in how you frame your own sentence and talk to yourself. Self-talk, see, title is practice positive self-talk. When you are talking to yourself, that is intrapersonal communication, mind you. So always speak in the positive way, right? Now let us see some examples. Here are some, negative self-talk, and corresponding to that, I'll also share what are the positive self-talk that you can better make use of. Let's take one example. That is too difficult. Sometimes that's too difficult. Instead you should say, what is that? It sounds little bit challenging, right? I cannot do it. So you have already ruled yourself out. So instead, positive self-talk people, what you have to say? I'll give it my best try or best shot. Likewise, suppose you are saying, I always mess things up. I always mess things up. Then what will be its positive self-talk? You say, if I mess up, I will learn from it. It will give me a lesson. Some people say, I'll surely fail. This is a very negative self-talk. So they have already said, I will surely fail. Right? But instead what you should? I want to succeed. My life is bad, if full of failure. Some people have these feelings, talking to themselves, right? So better you say, I am lucky. My life could be worse, right? So I do not know anything. Some people say, I do not know anything. I am a novice, ignorant fellow. I don't know anything. But instead put it there. I need to learn. A few more. Let's take example. I can't handle this. Your boss asks you something, to do something, and you say, I can't do this or I can't handle this. Instead say, I can try. I will certainly succeed if I try sincerely. Some people say, oh, this is impossible, right? But instead say, all I have to do is give it a try. I can't do anything right. Pessimistic people, or the inferiority complex people, they say this. Instead, what should you say? I can do better next time. Every failure is a ladder to success, right? At least I learned something, even if I didn't succeed. This should be your sentence instead of saying, I can't do anything right. So this way you can always, make a habit of, using positive self-talk, and this will, in due course, will lessen your inferiority complex. Now, next thing you can do is face your fear. If you fear something, don't ignore. Better face it, right? You can tell yourself, it is just an experiment and I'll see what happens. Do not cross the river, as I said, before you reach the shore. In an interview, what should you do? Better you tell yourself, हम किसी से कम नहीं. I am no less deserving a candidate, right? Tell yourself this, right? Neither overestimate yourself nor underestimate yourself. Next is set realistic goal, right? Your goal that you set must be realistic, must be achievable. Setting very high reaching goals and then failing to achieve, that will again reinforce your inferiority complex, mind you. So, but conversely, if you are setting realistic goals which are achievable, right, this will lead to your, positive outlook and make you more self-confident. So, set realistic goal. Likewise, know when to say no, right? Sometimes we feel very, reluctant to say no, even if we are not in a position to help someone. Somebody is asking us to do something. If you can genuinely do it, then say yes, accept, right? But then if you are not able to, right, don't give a false promise, right? Just because you have an inferiority complex, you may do that. But better to say no. So learning to say no will help you eventually to overcome inferiority complex, right? So these are certain things you can do in order to overcome inferiority complex. And if you are doing it, this becomes a part of your personality in your usual life, professional life, right? And also in job interview also, if you are having this positive, attitude, then you are going to succeed, right? So here I stop it here. Before I stop, again the same old request to you all, right? Make use of this, share with your friends. If you have not, subscribed, shared, right? Do subscribe and also share with your friends. Knowledge sharing is knowledge expanding. Thank you. Thank you.